Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. Times are hard. Times are really hard. We're digging deep. We are scraping the bottom of the barrel for content today because there's not much happening, is there? There's not a lot happening. It's a bit difficult without these midweek fixtures, picking what we want to talk about, but we'll do our best. So bear with me, please. I'm on my knees, just bear with me. As always, like and subscribe if you haven't already. Congratulations to Darrow D who won the Celtic shirt giveaway. Hopefully your shirt is en route, sir, and it will be with you very soon. Pick the away shirt. Nice choice. And if you haven't and you missed out, if you haven't won and whatever, sorry, commiserations, maybe more chances in the future. But it doesn't take away from the fact that if you haven't already, please make sure to support the channel by hitting like and subscribe. And let's get into today's video. Now, I sadly didn't get the chance to make a video on this channel yesterday. There's a new TSF, there's a new TSF1 out for the Formula 1 fans, which means I didn't get the opportunity to say rest in peace to John Hughes, the original Yogi, former Celtic player and Lisbon Lion, who sadly passed away this week. I'm one of these players that my dad always tells me about. For those who don't know, my dad's a bit of an older man. He's in the older generation. He grew up watching the Lisbon Lions and such. He's probably older than the majority of your grandas watching this video. And John Hughes was one of his favourite players. Tells me stories about him all the time. And he was heartbroken when I told him the news on, was it Monday night, that he'd sadly passed away, age 79. An absolute legend, another one of these guys who are a real trailblazer, and what this club is all about. You know, they really set the way for the future of our club. And that goes for all the Lisbon Lions. It goes for everybody who's ever played a major role in Celtic's history. You know, without these guys, we're nothing. And one thing that's always irritated me about modern football is the laziness in acknowledging the greats and acknowledging the past. And someone like John Hughes deserves every bit of recognition that he's getting over the past few days and going forward. You know, on social media, it's so easy for people to pretend that football didn't exist before the year 2000 or the year 1992. These are the guys, these are the characters, these are the personalities who made the sport the way they are and who made clubs like Celtic the way they are. So yeah, it was a real shame to hear the news. All the best to his family and everybody who knows John. It's a real, obviously, emotional moment. But God bless him, God keep him, and truly one of the greats in Celtic's history. So today's video, as I said, there's not a lot to talk about. We're still waiting on, you know, some transfer news, some updates, etc. But we have had a little bit of news on the way out, and I'm going to tie that into today's topic. So there was rumours that started the other day that James McCarthy is apparently wanting out. He's not interested anymore. He's not happy with the situation that he's in, with his limited game time at Celtic, and is ready to move on.
Yeah, I was training, played a couple of games here and there, and
it was reported in a few outlets that he's ready to move. And you know, it's been difficult for James McCarthy. He was never quite good enough to get into the team. I still don't think he's quite good enough now. And well, do you know what? That's harsh, because I don't think the question is if he's good enough or not. James McCarthy is obviously a very talented player who's had a very good career. You know, he's played at the highest level down in the English Premier League, and he's done it at a good level as well. You know, he wasn't just a stocking filler of a player. You know, he was a guy who was in and out first teams every single week. You know, he was a real reliable player, but fitness has been what's hindered him, and that's what's not made it work for him at Celtic. He's not up to speed with the rest of the squad. He's not up to the speed of Ange Postecoglou's demands, and he just can't keep up with other players in the team like Callum McGregor. Look at our central midfield: Callum McGregor, Rio Hatate, David Turnbull, Matt O'Reilly, all these names. James McCarthy. How does James McCarthy forge himself into that team if he's not up to the required standard when it comes to fitness, when it comes to, you know, that sort of thing? It's understanding that his time at Celtic might be one he's looking at now and going, right, if I want to finish my career playing football, it's probably not going to happen here. I didn't want to make this entire video about James McCarthy reportedly wanting away, because what sort of story is that? That's not a 10-minute video in itself. So we are going to link it in with a bit of Ange Postecoglou talk afterwards. But yeah, it is all rumours at the moment. Apparently there is some English sides looking at the potential of a move for James McCarthy. You'd imagine there's plenty of sides in the English Championship who could be doing with someone like James. And you know what? He'll go down there and he'll do a good job. I think that the expectation is a lot lower at clubs in the English Championship. To play at Celtic, you need to be in that first team every single week, playing to the required standards of a team whose fans expect to be winning league titles. And James can't play at that level right now. No disrespect to him, but we've seen the small amount of appearances we've seen of James McCarthy. We've seen that he's just not there. As much as you might love him because he's a Celtic fan, he's a Glasgow boy, etc., he's sadly just not at that level. That's the reality. But when he goes, if he has a chance to go to a Sunderland who are apparently interested, he can go down there with his experience. There's a lot less expectation on his back than what there is at a club like Celtic. It's a lot more relaxing for him. It's a demanding league. There's 46 games in that championship, but he's probably going to enjoy himself a lot more down there getting minutes than sitting on the bench here. The reality is Celtic have brought in Aaron Moy, who's another player ahead of him in the pecking order. You would imagine that Celtic are still sniffing in and around the transfer market for a central defensive midfielder who will also be above James McCarthy at the transfer window. I think for the best of his career, which has probably got very limited time left, and for the best of Celtic, it is, the interest are pushing in the direction of getting James out the club. Not like we're pushing him out the door or anything, but I think that it's just, for both parties, the best thing to do is to seek pastures new. The original news that broke said that the journalist Fraser Fletcher who broke it, he said, "I'm told the 31-year-old is disappointed with how things have gone and is seeking a new challenge for the season. Interest is there and some offers are being prepared." Of course, we all sort of agreed in the first place that James McCarthy was probably not an Ange Postecoglou signing. Seemed very Dermot Desmond-esque at the time of the rebuild. It was probably just a good idea to bring in more numbers. He was a Celtic fan. It all kind of worked in that sense, but he was never going to be someone, and we've seen that last season, who was going to break into this squad and have a regular place. He apparently wants a new challenge. He's lived the dream, hasn't he? He's came to his boyhood club, a club that he loves so much. He came back up the road to his hometown as well. He's got to win a league title with them, despite not playing a lot of minutes. He's done that part of the dream, So now if he wants to play football, it is respectable of him seeking a move elsewhere. So hopefully we do see something happen. Now the only situation is James McCarthy is on contract till 2025. Now, remember that last year when we signed James McCarthy and Joe Hart, I think we signed them both on the same day, and we brought in James McCarthy and we were told it was a 4 or 5 year contract. We were all sort of like, what? Excuse me? We didn't expect that. So he is under contract for another 3 years here at Celtic, which might make moving him on a little more difficult. I don't know if clubs are going to be willing to pay a substantial amount of money for him. I don't know how much Celtic expect in that regard. Are we going to look for maybe just loaning him out? Who knows? A loan move could be suitable because he could go and get himself up to speed and maybe he comes back offering something to the club. But I think that his time at Celtic, despite what capacity of move he gets, loan or permanent, it's going to be done for him at Celtic. So we'll just have to wait and see what happens. But it ties into an interesting story that was wrote about Ange Postecoglou over the past couple of days. So Ange Postecoglou came out the other day in the media with some very interesting quotes, some very brutal quotes, you could say, but ones that I absolutely love. I adore it. Because he's just selling the club once again to a fantastic level. He's someone who gets everything Celtic's all about. And he's here to please nobody. You know what? He's here to do his job as a manager. He's here to win things. He's here to get a squad winning trophies. And he's doing that without taking any prisoners. He's been ruthless since the day he joined the club. We've seen how he's been in the media, and we've seen how he is when presented with daft questions and such. But a brutal message to his squad, you could say, with some of his comments in the media over the past few days. So I'm just going to read the whole quote verbatim. I'll have it on screen for you to read as well. But I don't know if it links into the James McCarthy story. I wonder if that's been the catalyst for these sort of comments, or if there's other situations at the clubs with with players who might want away, who might not be quite happy. I don't know what's quite triggered it. It was just in a piece, I think, that the Record have reported on. Yes, the Record, of course, are everybody's favourites. But yeah, I'm going to read it verbatim because I love this. I absolutely do. We'll talk about the comments afterwards. He says, they're at Celtic Football Club. If that is not happiness for them, I don't know what is. They can find it somewhere else. It's not my job to keep them happy. My job is to make sure that we get the best out of them and we give them every opportunity. And they will get opportunities. They know that. If you want to play at a big club, and this is a big club, the reality of that is part of it, you'll need to have competition for places. It keeps you at your best, and also you will require a big squad of players. This group of players understands that they have and will work hard every day. The game is a byproduct of how we train every day, and training levels are high because we have a strong squad. If you just have a strong 11, then your training levels are not great, which means even the first 11 are not improving at a rate. My job is not to keep them happy. My job is to make sure we keep them ready and we're able to take their opportunity when it comes along. They're able to take their opportunity when it comes along. So I think it was off the back of being asked about squad depth and player rotation, etc., etc., and how we've got so much talent in this squad to juggle, which is a very good thing. The fact that we have got so much depth in this squad at this current moment is fantastic. You look at the front three, for example, the fact that we can rotate so much. You've got Kyogo and Georgios Yakimakis. You've got Abada. You've got Forrest. I'm joking. You've got Jota, you've got Maida, you've got all these players just alone there where you can chop and change and play them. There's so much talent to fight. Sometimes you see Abada sitting on the bench, you're like, Christ, that's a shame that Abada's on the bench. But Ange is spot on about, we've got to keep a good squad. There's no point in just having a good 11 with no competition for places. Now, that's been the problem in the past with Celtic, with players like James Forrest, I think, where he's become very complacent in the sense, well, there's no other right winger coming through the team to take his place. But now you've got Abada, you've got Jota. These are two guys that can play on the right hand side. There is healthy competition and it pushes players to get better, and that's been one of the major things about this Ange Postecoglou rebuild. We're going to use the phrase here, we never stop, and we haven't stopped in terms of recruitment and building. We've kept building on top of an already fantastic team that we already have. And with his comments on Sky Sports a couple of weeks ago, it looks as though that's going to stay the same. We still want to add depth. But the comments I wanted to touch on the most was the ones about keeping players happy. That's the one I wanted to talk about the most, because that quote right at the start there, well, they're at Celtic Football Club. If that's not happiness for them, I don't know what else is. That is exactly what I think every fan has been saying for the entirety of their time supporting the club. And it's good to hear a manager who understands that. Look, if you're not wanting to be here, get yourself to... that's the way it is, and that's been the problem with players who looked as though they've down tools in the past. And I know some players have had agendas against them in recent years. You think of maybe Edouard, for example. A lot of people kept giving it that, he's not interested, even though he scored 20 goals. But there have been definite examples of players who have down tools. They have been greeting-faced about maybe not getting opportunities or the way that things are going, and they've been forced moves. If they're not happy, get them away. And I'm glad that we've got a manager who understands that. And I don't know if maybe the James McCarthy situation, as I said, is one that links into all of that. But these are the kind of quotes that shows you the guy that we've got at the helm. He's here to do his job and get players ready in training and win things. And he's not going to do that by having players around who don't want to be at Celtic. And that's been one of the key things as well. And targets for Ange Postecoglou, the players he's signed, he's been signing players who want to be at Celtic, not ones who have been 50-50 on the fence. Maybe there's other options here or there. No, he's been bringing players in who he knows wants to play for this team, and he knows that he's got to get the absolute best out of, because they're going to be happy here. The players very much dictate their own happiness, and there's no point in a manager trying to wrestle with that. I don't want to stupidly compare it to a video game. It's like Football Manager. If a player comes crying to you, there's only so much you can say to convince them. And it's very much like a real life scenario. What is the point in... It's like trying to impress somebody. There's only so much you can do. If you're trying there to constantly win battles and win people over, you're wasting your time and energy. So the players very much dictate their own happiness, whereas Ange Postecoglou, he's in the back, he's getting the cogs spinning to create a winning team. Celtic should dictate the happiness. The players should dictate the happiness. And if they don't want to be here, then they simply move on. So, on that note, building on depth, is it another nod towards the situation of how many more players we'll see come in through the door? Should we expect more signings? I don't know. I'm not going to speculate. But, there are places where there is competition up for grabs in the squad still. We would like more depth in certain areas. We're hopefully going to see or hear more about that as the week progresses. But yeah, I love these comments from Ange. The game's a byproduct of how we train every day, and the levels are high because we have a strong squad. I said this in, I think maybe the match review the other day. It was a video recently. This squad is the strongest Celtic squad I've seen in a long, long time. In terms of how we have options coming off the bench for, and you trickle down the squad and you see different. It's better than what it was under Rodgers. So, he's doing a grand job at it. He deserves every bit of credit that he gets, Ange Postecoglou. We've got a real special guy at the helm, but more importantly, he's someone who gets and understands the club, and that's what I love. Because we're an institution of a club. We're huge, we're massive, and the happiness does spawn from being at Celtic. And it's hard when you live in an era of time where English football is apparently the be-all, end-all, and that's the grand stage of them all. Celtic is part of a bigger bigger thing than most clubs down in England. You know, we are huge, we are special, we've got something really unique here, and Ange is building more into that storybook. So yeah. Okay, that about does it. A bit of waffle for today's video. But there's nothing, man. There's not much to actually speak about. Let me know what you want to see over the next few days until we roll up to Ross County on Saturday. Of course, we'll have a podcast, we'll have a match preview, and then we'll have a match review and stuff like that. But in terms of everything else in between, you know, until news breaks, we're kind of in a limbo right now. So let me know what you want and let me know what you think. But that'll do me for today. Okay. It was nice seeing you. Take care. See you next time.